Welcome to Via Peregrina, a solo pilgrimage of strategy, timing, and careful decision making. Your goal is simple: claim all 7 shrines before defeat overtakes you. But the road is long. Temptations will distract you, trials will burden you, and every step must follow the path's direction. When you finally claim Jerusalem, you win. But beware, the journey can end early if your burdens grow too heavy or if the draw pile runs dry. Your pilgrimage consists of route cards, and they will be forests, rivers, and mountains, all numbered from 1 to 6. You will have temptation cards that will provide some difficult choices during the game. You will have trials, which will increase your burdens. You will have the 7 shrines. I laid them out already here on the playmat, and each of those shrines has a unique condition and blessing. A condition meaning before you can claim the shrine, you will have to meet that condition with your cards that you played in your journey row. You have a red D8 die, which you use to track your burdens, and you have a start card, which basically sets the difficulty of the game. And you can choose between easy, normal, hard, and extreme. On the playmat, which by the way is not included in the base game, but you can order it on our website, you also get an additional starting card in an easy mode as a little bonus on the playmat. So in the explanation that I will provide, we will use the easy setup for starters. A turn structure in Via Peregrina is as follows, and it's the same turn over and over again. First of all, you play a card. You play a card in your journey row, and you compile with the cards that you play a journey row. You then, if it's a special card, immediately resolve its effect. The effect will be triggered by a temptation card and by a trial card. You then check if you can claim a shrine, which means that the cards that you have played, they need to match one of the conditions on one of the shrines that you need to visit. You then, after playing, refill your hand to 5 cards, and you then check whether you have achieved victory, which means you've visited all the 7 shrines, or you encounter defeat, which means that you either ran out of cards in your deck, or your burden die has a value equal to the maximum value which is listed on your start card. The travel row always follows a direction. It's either ascending or descending, and the current direction you need to follow is always indicated on the first card in your journey row. In the beginning, this will be indicated by the start card that you chose. So in this case, ascending would mean something like this: a 1, a 2, and a 4. Later on, you will see that this can change. It can be a descending order that you need to play, which would mean that you have to play like a 4, a 2, and a 1. That's called descending. What is also allowed is equal values. So you could have a 2 followed by another 2. That is not breaking the direction. This is still okay, regardless of the fact whether it's ascending or descending. We call those plateaus. If, however, during the game you play against the direction, for instance, you had played a 4, and then instead of playing another 4 or a higher card, you would play a lower card, like in this case a 2, you break direction. In this case, you suffer a break cost. How much this break cost is again indicated on the first card of the row, in this case the starting card, and it says that the break cost is 1, which would mean that in such a situation I would have to increase the value of my red D8 with 1. So in the beginning, I will now place it on 1. Too many burdens, your journey is over. So in the example here, in the easy setup, if I would end up with 8 burdens, it would be game over. When playing route cards, a special situation may occur. This can happen when you play in ascending order a value of 6. For instance, I might have a 1, a 2, another 2, a 4, and then I play a 6. So everything is nicely in ascending order, and I have now played a 6. As you recall, the highest value of a root card is a 6. So two things will happen now when you play a 6 in ascending order. First of all, you can claim a vision. When you claim a vision, or when you trigger a vision, you perform the following. You either take one burden, so you increase the value of your red D8 die with 1, or if you have them, you shuffle 2 of the trial cards. If they are present in your discard pile, you shuffle them back in your draw deck, and that's also the payment for a vision. And a vision is powerful because a vision allows you to take a look at the top 5 cards of the draw deck. You can then discard one of those cards, and you can place the cards that you drew from your draw deck, you can place them back on top of the draw deck in any order that you see fit. Also, what happens when you play a 6 in ascending order, the vision is optional. So whether or not you claim the vision, the next card you play after a 6 can be any value. So if you play a 2, which would mean that you are now actively playing a descending card, that's no problem when a 6 was placed before it, because that triggers a reset. Basically, in the storyline, you're on top of the mountain, you get the vision, and then the next card you can play, because you can't get any higher than the top of the mountain, can be any other card. The same applies if you are playing in descending order. You play a 1, you're at the bottom of the mountain, you again can trigger a vision. You pay the cost or not if you don't want to have the vision, but after that 1, you can then play any card you want. So you could play a 4, a 5, a 6, doesn't matter. After that 1 in descending order, it's also a reset, so you are free to play a card, any card of your liking after that value. When you play a special card, either a temptation or a trial, as the name suggests, something special happens. When you play a temptation, you have to make a choice. You either choose to play the top card from the draw deck without peeking, so it's a bit of a gamble, or you take one burden, so increasing your red D8 die with 1, and you then randomly discard 2 cards from hand into your discard pile, allowing you to free up spaces in your hand. Remember, you always draw back to 5 cards. So the choice is yours. Either a gamble, and you play the top card from your draw deck, and then see what happens, because if you play against the direction, you take the break cost. Or you take 2 cards from your hand, random, in the discard pile. If you play a trial, that'll increase your burdens. Basically, a trial will remove all the cards from the journey row, so all these cards will go into your discard pile, and you will have to increase your burden value. By how much? Well, you count the number of cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You divide by 2, round it down, and with a maximum of 2, that's the amount of burdens you have to add on your D8. So in this case, I will discard 6 cards, that's divided by 2, 3, a maximum of 2. So basically, I will now have to add 2 burdens onto my die. So I'm already at 3 burdens into the game. So these cards, they can be quite painful in the game. Now let's see how you can claim a shrine. Currently, this is what I have in my journey row. I performed, or I didn't perform, a vision. That was up to me. And after a 6, that's a reset. In ascending order, I can play any card, no problem, no break cost. So I will start with a 1. Draw back to 5 cards. I'll play a 2. Draw back to 5 cards. I'll play a 4. And now, if I look closely, I will have here the cards needed to complete the condition of Canterbury, because Canterbury says 3 cards of the same root, ascending or descending. I have indeed 3 cards of the same root, 3 forests, and they are all 3 ascending. So now I can remove those cards, and only those cards which I need to claim the sanctuary, I remove them to my discard pile, and I claim the sanctuary, in this case Canterbury. I do this by removing the first card of the row, which in this case, of course, in the beginning of the game is the start card, and I replace it with Canterbury. This is my first shrine that I visited, and some things change. First of all, we need to look now, what's the direction? The direction is still ascending, but as you can see, there are some shrines which will reverse direction to descending. I now also see that my break cost is +2, which means that if I play a card which is not ascending whilst the requirement is ascending, I will have to increase my D8 with 2 burdens, so a 3 would then become a 5, which is bad, of course, because, let's keep it close at hand, 8 burdens and it's game over. But shrines also give blessings. I can see here, and that's what this token is used for, I see here that one time during the game, I can play against the direction without paying the penalty. So if I would play against the direction, instead of taking the 2 penalty, I would be able to say, I'm going to use the blessing, continue play as if nothing happened, but I can only use it once. And I can only use it as long as the shrine is active, i.e. when the shrine is the first card here in the journey row. So let's continue play. I refill my hand to 5 cards. Let's see what we have. Okay. I could say I will play now another 6. Again, it's a 6 in ascending order. This would trigger a vision, if I would choose to have a vision, meaning of course that I would have to pay 1 burden, or alternatively, if I got 2 of those trials in my discard pile, I would be able to take those 2 trials, shuffle them back into my draw deck, and use that as the cost of the vision. I only have 1, I don't feel like taking a burden, so I'm not gonna use the vision. After a 6 we have a reset, which means that I can play any card that I choose to after that. So I will now play, for instance, let's say a 2. This here, what I have now here in place, again is a condition for one of the sanctuaries. Rome states you need to have 1 pair of cards, i.e. the same value, correct, I've got 2 6s, and then 1 card that breaks direction. Yes, indeed, the 2, although I didn't have to pay the break cost, remember, after a 6 we have a reset, the 2 still breaks direction, because it is in descending order. So I now can claim Rome. What happens then is, I remove the active shrine, and I didn't use the ability, so tough luck, I can't use it later on. I'll put it over here, or if you have the playmat, you can play it here on the predetermined spot to collect your visited shrines. And I will take Rome and place Rome now here as the first card in my row. Of course, not forgetting to pay the costs, i.e. the 2 cards of the same value and then the card breaking the direction, and they go into the discard pile. The other cards, they remain in place. Remember, this can be quite tough with the trials, because the more cards you accumulate, if you play a trial, divided by 2, that's the amount of burdens you get, luckily with a maximum of 2. What we now see here with Rome is that we need to start playing now in descending order. If I play against the direction, I have to pay 2 burdens. That's quite painful. But the ability of Rome is that one time, and one time only, I can claim its blessing by putting a little marker on there. And the blessing says I can prevent the negative effects of a trial or of a temptation. So let's continue play. Refill my hand to 5 cards. go. Let's see what we have here. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think I want to play this. What I can do now is I can play this card, which normally would trigger then a temptation, which would mean either play the top card from the draw deck, so take a bit of a gamble, or pay a burden, increase my burdens, and remove 2 cards at random from my hand and refill, so making some free slots. But no, I'm just going to use this along with the ability of Rome. So I play it and I say, okay, I don't have to take any penalty for that. So basically freeing up a slot in my hand, refill back to 5 cards. I shall continue play. And now it becomes interesting to see what are the requirements of the different shrines we have here in play. So what I will do is, we need to play in descending order. Let's not forget that. So I will play another 3. That's a plateau. It's perfectly okay. Go back to 5 cards, sorry. I don't have any descending cards, so I will have to break direction. But I think I'm going to do it because I have here 4 4s in my hand, which just so happen to be the requirement for Chartres. Chartres says you need to have 4 cards in your route with the same value. The routes, however, river, forest, and mountain, they may differ. So I am going to do this. I am going to play the 4. This breaks direction, which means that I have to increase my burdens with 2. Very painful. Refill to 5 cards. I'll play another one. That's a plateau, so no worries. Refill and play. Refill and play. And now I see that I have the condition of Chartres in my journey row. So I'm going to remove those 4 cards of the same value with different routes, no problem. And this basically claims Chartres. Chartres is now put as the first shrine here in the row. The other goes to my area over here, or on the playmat to the predetermined area over there. I put it as the first card in the row. And let's look at the conditions now. Okay, direction is still descending. The break cost is now 1, so it's a little bit less harsh than what we had before. And here the ability of Chartres is you get a free vision. Free meaning that in this case it's descending. If I would play a 1, I can claim a vision. And remember, normally to claim a vision you would have to either shuffle 2 of those trials back in your discard, in your draw deck, or take a burden. I would be able to do a vision without any of those costs. So let's first refill our hand to 5 cards. Let's take a look. Okay, I shall play the 2 here. Refill to 5. And now what we see is I don't have any cards that are descending, only ascending cards and even a trial. So I think it's game over because I would have to play the 5 here. I would take a cost of 1. My d8 would go on the 8 value. And remember, on the easy setup, 8 burdens means you lose the game. So I only was able to visit 3 shrines and 4 shrines were not yet visited. Better luck next time. Now that you've seen how to play via Peregrina and we explained the basic rules, let's tackle one more thing. When you claim the shrine, all those shrines, they provide a blessing. Now, some of those blessings you can activate at any time during the game when you need to, but only of course when that specific shrine is active. But some of the shrines also provide you with an instant blessing. For instance, Assisi, it is an instant blessing of -1 burden, which means that you can reduce the value of burdens on your d8 with 1. Santiago de Compostela has an immediate blessing of drawing 3 cards, which means that you, at that moment when you claim Santiago de Compostela, you draw 3 cards back into hand. And the last one, which has an instant ability, is Cologne. Cologne, when you claim it, you basically draw 5 cards at random from your discard pile and you shuffle them back in your draw deck. Jerusalem does not have a special ability, but remember, Jerusalem is the last shrine you have to claim. You can't claim it before any of the other shrines, and when you claim Jerusalem, you win the game. I wish you good luck, good fortune, not too many temptations, not too many trials, and hopefully you will be able to complete Via Peregrina, collect and visit all the different shrines, all the 7 shrines, and try it out on all the different difficulty settings. Have fun!